Hey guys, what's up? It's Mariah, and today I'm just going to be doing a video about my labor and delivery. So if you guys want to watch that, just keep on watching. So basically, where I left off last time was that I was about 6 months pregnant, almost 7 months pregnant. And I went to the doctor because I had high blood pressure, high blood sugars, I'm not sure exactly which one. And they ended up telling me that I had to go to the hospital because it was so high. So I went and they admitted me, and it was like really high. They said like that I should have been having seizures and all this other crazy stuff. It was like insane. So that happened. And then let's fast forward. Everybody came and seen me in the hospital. It was like really like comforting how many people actually showed up to come and see me in the hospital and make sure that I was okay and everything like that. So then maybe about 3 days into being at the hospital, they were like, okay, we're just gonna think about discharging you. So just keep that in mind. You're probably gonna get discharged tomorrow and all that stuff. And so I had the heartbeat monitor over my stomach, and they watched it throughout the night, and then they noticed that it kept going low, and then it would go back up, and then it would go low, and then it would go back up. But they didn't really like know why, other than just because of my blood pressure and everything being so high. So we ended up doing an ultrasound, and the doctor said that she looked like she was probably going to be about 4 or 5 pounds and probably about 18 inches, which is really small for a baby, but I mean, it was okay. So I was like, okay, that's fine, you know, like she's just gonna be small. And I really wasn't expecting her to be like this huge baby or anything. I'm only 4'11", so I'm not really like that tall or anything, so I didn't really expect her to be very, very tall. So they went ahead and they did the ultrasound, and then the next day, they, around like 10 o'clock, no, probably more like around 9, they actually ended up coming into my room and just saying, hey, you know what, her heartbeat just keeps going lower, so we're going to do an emergency C-section. Call whoever you need to call and get them down here. So me being 20 at the time now, totally freaking out. It was a weekday, so everybody was going to work. I didn't know who to call. I just figured that I would call my stepmom. So I called her, and she was like on her way to work. And I said, hey, they're doing an emergency C-section. You need to get down here. And she was like, what? Are you serious? And I was like, yeah, they're getting her out right now. You have like 20-30 minutes to get here. And she was like, okay. And then at the time, me and my daughter's dad weren't really talking. Like, he should be there. So I went ahead and I called his sister. And I said, hey, just let him know that I'm having the baby. They're doing a C-section. And she was like, oh, okay, I'll call him right now. So she calls him and tells him whatever she tells him. And he actually ends up showing up. Now, by this time of my mom getting there, and then like a couple seconds later, him walking in, I am being given medicine. I am being given like pain medicine, medicine to make me help so I don't throw up, just like a whole bunch of stuff. So I was pretty out of it, and then plus with the shock of you're having this baby now, and then on top of that, it also being an emergency C-section, I was just completely out of it. So the doctor ended up telling me, well, who do you want to go in there? And from the beginning, I had always planned on my stepmom being in the room. Why? But something from the beginning was telling me to just let him be in the room. So I like asked him, I was like, are you sure you want to be in there? Are you sure you want to be in there? Because as soon as he got another girlfriend, he had made it very clear that he did not want to be in the room. So me being out of it and me also just like having these thoughts, I'm like, you know what? Fine. Just, you can go in there, but that's that. Like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Just, you're going to go in there. And he was like, okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. And all that stuff. And so they wheel me out and they make them wait in the room and they tell them that they'll come and get him in a little bit, and they give him like this whole outfit that he has to put on and everything. So I go in there and I got an epidural, but I honestly don't really remember it. I like felt the prick, but I just thought it was like just like getting a shot. And I really was like so scared just because of everybody saying how horrible it was and all this other stuff. And I was like terrified. So they ended up giving me the epidural, and I lay down and I have my arms like spread out. And then I'm like talking to the anesthesiologist and then all of a sudden I turn around and he's just sitting there. And I was just like, oh, what the heck? Like, when did you get in here? And he was like, oh, I've been here, blah, blah, blah. Like, how did you not notice that I was in here? And I was just like, oh, I don't remember. Like, I don't remember you coming in here. And so they go ahead and they start doing the C-section. And the whole time, me and him, it was kind of awkward. We were like holding hands and talking about cars. And it was just really weird. And he just kept saying like I was just talking about like a whole bunch of random stuff. And I was like, yeah, that probably makes a lot of sense considering the fact that I was on a lot of pain medication and like the anesthesia or whatever. And then plus the epidural, and I was just tired and scared. And so I just kept shaking and they just kept saying, are you cold? And I was like, no, I'm not cold. And so that was going on. And then they kept telling me like, oh, you're going to feel pressure, you're going to feel pressure and all this stuff. I never felt anything. So I think I'm very lucky with that. I could not feel a thing. So they were like, okay, so you're going to feel pressure. And then so I'm guessing that somebody laid on my stomach. And then they got her out. And she only cried one time. That is like all I can remember is that she only cried one time. So at that point I was very nervous because usually babies cry and cry and cry and stuff like that, or they start whimpering or something like that. But she cried one time and then she just stopped. So at that point my heart dropped. I didn't know what was going on. And then I'm like on all this medicine and I'm just out of it. So they bring her over to me and I honestly can't even remember seeing her. That's how much medicine or medication I don't know that I was on. I did not remember seeing her face. But they brought her over to me and they were like, oh, do you want to kiss her or anything? So I kissed her, but I think I kissed the blanket because I couldn't like really see where she was. So that happened, and then they said that they're going to take the baby and for him to go with them. And at that point, I didn't know really anything. But I just kept saying, like, just go with her. Like, if they think that somebody needs to be with her, then you need to go. Because obviously I can't just get up off the table and go. So it felt like it was like 20 minutes long, honestly, the whole thing. But it was probably like a good hour to almost an hour and a half. She was born at 10:15 a.m. on October 28, 2015. She ended up actually being 1 pound and 8 ounces. And she was 13 inches long. And for that being my first like baby, I had no idea like what would happen, what was going on, or anything like that. So they finished up the C-section, and they put me into this, they wheeled me into another room, and I had to sit there until I can like move my legs a little bit. And so they took the epidural out, and all of that. And then she kept trying to have me move my legs and stuff like that. And so eventually I got to the point where I could move them. And the whole time I just kept asking, like, what's going on? Where is she? What's going on? And the girl just kept telling me, like, oh, she's fine. Like, don't worry about it. She's fine. And so I didn't think anything of it, because at the time I didn't know how little she was. I didn't know how much she weighed. I didn't know any of that. So she wheels me back into my original room, and everybody starts like coming in and saying like how small she was and all this stuff. But in my mind, it still didn't click like how small that she was. And then like that's all everybody just kept saying was how small she is, how small she is. Like, if I'm okay, how small she is. And then everybody just kept also talking about how he brought his girlfriend, but that's his own choice. I mean, he's the one that has to live with that, so he did that. So everybody just kept stressing to me like how small she was. And I really didn't understand, like, because one of my cousins had had a smaller baby, and it wasn't uncommon to have small babies. So in my mind, I was just like, oh, she's little like them. Like, I never imagined her being that small. So, I start throwing up and stuff like that just because the medicine that they gave me to not throw up, I had actually eaten, and I wasn't supposed to, but because they thought that they were going to discharge me, they went ahead and let me eat. So I ended up throwing up and stuff like that, and they were like, oh, just let her rest and stuff like that. So everybody ended up leaving and stuff like that. So I actually didn't end up getting to see her until she was already a day old, just because of having a C-section and all that. And during that time, I learned that she was in the NICU and how much she weighed and all of that. And also, her dad had also texted me a picture of her since I wasn't able to see her. So I'll go ahead and I'll insert it here. And then also, like, everybody just had pictures. So I was basically just going off of these pictures of seeing her. And so the next day, I went into an actual like room by myself. And I was there, and it was okay. Everybody kept pressuring me to go see her. So I was like trying to make myself get up and make myself go to the bathroom and stuff like that. And the first time I did, I actually ended up almost passing out and falling on the floor. Just because of all the pressure and the weight and losing blood and like just everything that happened to me. So I actually ended up having to wait like a couple more hours. And then two of my friends and my sister ended up wheeling me down there to go see her. And the whole time I didn't touch her. I was terrified to touch her. I didn't know if I was allowed to open up the incubator. I didn't know anything. So I was completely terrified because she was just so small that everybody just kept telling me, you have to take it day by day. We don't know if she's going to make it, and all of that other stuff. So it was really, really hard. And then after that, a couple hours. By this time, my stepmom and my dad have started coming to come and see her and all this other stuff. So everybody just keeps coming to see her, and the whole time I still am so scared to touch her that I have not touched her. Until my sister-in-law Kim comes, and she's like, no, just touch her, just touch her. And she's the one that basically made me touch her. She was like, no, you have to touch her. Like, you're going to touch her. So I did, and I was like terrified because I thought that I was actually going to break her, which sounds really like horrible, but whenever you see something that small, and fragile, and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you accidentally press too hard, if her bone's going to break or anything. So I was terrified to touch her, but I ended up touching her and stuff like that. And they got pictures, and so I'll insert like a whole bunch of pictures, and I'll insert a picture of her foot next to my hand so you guys can really see like how small she really was. So all that was going on, and then a couple months later, like she was born in October, so about December, they finally brought it to my attention that she had a PDA, which is a hole in your heart. So she had a hole in her heart, and the thing that I didn't like the most about this hospital was that they waited until it got 2 times the size that it was to even mention it to me that she had it. So I was really, really, really upset about that. But at the time, I didn't really know when they were supposed to tell me, how they were supposed to tell me, and what was going forth. So they actually ended up deciding that they needed to transfer her to Fresno. So they did. So she got airlifted about a couple of nights later to Fresno. And then about like one day, 2 days tops, I ended up going and seeing her in Fresno. So I went out there, and that was actually the first time I ever got to hold her, was then. So from her being born to 2 months, I never got to hold her. So whenever I got there, they were like, oh yeah, we're going to make that like a mandatory thing. You have to hold her. You have to hold her. So I was like, okay. And it was really hard because of all the cables and the machine and everything that was on her. It was so hard to hold her. And honestly, it just felt like I was holding a whole bunch of wires. As horrible as that sounds, that's exactly how it felt. So that ends up happening. They end up giving her like medicine and stuff because they thought that they were going to originally have to do surgery to close it. But during her time at that hospital, it ended up being okay. And then they were kind of worried about her eyes too. She had ROP, which is retinopathy of prematurity. And basically, all the oxygen and everything, it makes their eyes shake. So basically, her retinas were getting detached. And that was caused by the other hospital putting her on a machine that they didn't know how to use. So they did that. And then fast forward February, she ended up getting discharged on February 18th, 2016. So 6 months old, she got discharged, finally was able to come home. So she had to be seen by a preemie doctor, a lung doctor, and a heart specialist, and an eye doctor. So around, I kept taking her appointment. She had all her shots. Everybody kept saying that she was okay, but everybody just wanted to watch her very, very, very closely. So it got to the point to where I was going to Fresno twice a month to go and have her lungs checked. And then I would have heart doctor appointments 2 to 3 times a month. And eye doctor appointments were a lot. So then in June, I actually ended up taking her to a doctor. And he was like, you know what? She has like stage 3 ROP, which is retinopathy of prematurity. So we need to do the surgery. So we end up going to Pasadena's, and they do a LASIK eye surgery on her. And I'll insert some pictures if I can find some. But that was one of the scariest moments of my life. I don't even know how to explain something like that. Or I honestly would not wish something like this on my worst enemy. I don't care who it is. I do not wish this upon anybody. So that happens. Thank God everything went great with that. And her eyes are fine right now. And then, so that happened in June. And then in August, the day after my birthday, we had to go to CHLA, and she had to have heart surgery. She had to have heart surgery in order to put, basically it was like this little thing, and it kind of looked like a candy. And they put it in, they go through her groin, and they go up to her heart, and they put it in there, and then they expand it. And so they ended up doing that. She got discharged the same day, so everything went great with that. I was really, really worried about that one just because, one, I was only 20 years old. Well, at that time, 20, 21 now. But I was scared. She was my first baby. She just had eye surgery. Now she has to have heart surgery. I was just basically traumatized, to say the least. So all this ends up happening, and like everything goes fine. My mom and my sister end up coming out to CHLA with me so that I wasn't there alone. So we all end up going out there and stuff like that, and everything goes fine. They leave a day earlier than me. So everything's fine with that. Everything went great. She now her heart is growing correctly, and the thing is growing with her heart. So far so good with the heart surgery and everything like that. So far so good with her eyes, and her lungs are doing really, really good. Whenever she gets really sick, I do have to get her albuterol and stuff like that, and steroids, and she has to wear like a breathing machine and stuff like that. But other than that, she's perfectly healthy. She's 2 years old. She is the best thing in the world. She is amazing. She could probably hear her singing over here. She's adorable, and I just cannot imagine my life without her. So that was basically my labor and delivery / her health problems at the beginning of her life. If you guys have any questions at all, just comment them down below. I will be more than happy to answer them. Or if you need me to make another video, I can. But if you just have any questions, I'm always open to answering them, especially because I know that I'm not the only person that goes through this. Other people do too. So if they have any questions about who her doctor was, or how did all this happen, or anything like that, just honestly comment down below. Message me. I will always message you guys back. So yeah, just so you guys know, I'm always here for you. And if anybody is going through this, just know that you are not alone, and that there are many people out here going through the same thing. Alright guys, well that's it for today. Make sure you guys give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe. Turn on your post notifications, and just have a great day. Bye guys.